The fire alarm at Roosevelt Elementary meant different things to different people. To Principal Martinez, it meant evacuation procedures. To the teachers, it meant herding 400 kids to safety. To Jack Morrison in the maintenance office, it meant something was very wrong. Welcome to Unseen Heroes. Before we tell you about the janitor who became a guardian, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. And if you believe heroes work in every corner of our schools, hit subscribe. Roosevelt Elementary sat in downtown Phoenix, serving kids from the barrio and beyond. On this Wednesday in March, third graders were practicing multiplication while kindergartners finger-painted spring flowers. Just another day until it wasn't. Jack Morrison had pushed a mop through these halls for 8 years. At 52, with calloused hands and a thermos of black coffee, he was invisible to most. Kids called him Mr. Jack. Teachers nodded politely. Parents never noticed him at all. What they didn't know was that before Jack fixed leaky faucets and unstuck windows, he'd defused roadside bombs in Fallujah. 3 tours as an EOD specialist. Explosive Ordnance Disposal. The job where one mistake meant you don't go home. Jack's transition to civilian life hadn't been easy. The nightmares still came sometimes. Dreams of red wires and timing devices, of split-second decisions that meant life or death for his squad. He'd taken the janitor job at Roosevelt because it was simple, predictable. No life or death choices. Just broken pipes and squeaky hinges. Or so he'd thought. The fire alarm started at 11:23 a.m. Jack was in the basement checking the heating system when the piercing wail began. Standard protocol, he thought, reaching for his radio to coordinate with the office. But Mrs. Chen's voice cracked through the static, panic barely controlled. "Jack, this isn't a drill. There's smoke on the second floor. Real smoke. I smell gasoline." Jack's blood went cold. In 8 years, he'd memorized every pipe, every wire, every system in this building. Nothing used gasoline. Nothing should smell like gasoline. As Jack climbed the stairs, muscle memory kicked in. In Fallujah, he'd learned to read smoke like a language. Black smoke meant petroleum products. The density told him how much accelerant. The direction showed him wind patterns. This wasn't accidental. This was deliberate, strategic. Someone had studied this building's layout, known exactly where to place the fire for maximum damage and minimum escape routes. He grabbed his emergency kit and ran for the stairs. His bad knee, courtesy of an IED outside Baghdad, screamed in protest. He ignored it. Second floor was chaos. Teachers were evacuating classrooms, but thick black smoke was already filling the east hallway. Jack followed the smell, his nose trained by years of identifying chemical signatures. Room 23. Mrs. Peterson's second grade class. The door was locked from inside. Jack pounded on it. "Mrs. Peterson. It's Jack." A muffled voice. "Jack. The door won't open." Someone poured something under the door and lit it. Through the small window, Jack could see 18 7-year-olds huddled in the corner. Mrs. Peterson was at the windows, but they were painted shut, reinforced for safety. A cruel irony. The hallway behind Jack was filling with smoke. He had minutes, maybe less. He pulled out his maintenance keys, but the lock wouldn't turn. Something was jamming it from inside. Jack examined the door frame. Wooden wedges had been driven in. This was deliberate. Someone wanted that classroom sealed. Jack's EOD training kicked in. Assess the situation. Identify the threat. Find the solution. The smoke was spreading faster now. He could hear sirens outside, but fire trucks would take time to set up, time those kids didn't have. He ran to his maintenance closet and grabbed his reciprocating saw, the one he used for major repairs. Industrial grade, designed to cut through anything. The reciprocating saw felt familiar in Jack's hands, though different from the breaching tools he'd used in Iraq. There, he'd cut through concrete walls to reach IEDs. Here, he was cutting through wood to reach children. The principle was the same: precision under pressure, steady hands when everyone's counting on you. Back at room 23, Jack attacked the door hinges. The saw screamed against metal, sparks flying. His hands, steady from years of delicate bomb work, guided the blade with precision. As sparks flew from the hinges, Jack's mind calculated escape routes with military precision. Primary exit, main stairwell. Secondary, fire escape on the west side. Tertiary, windows if absolutely necessary. Always have 3 ways out. Lesson number 1 from EOD school. First hinge. Second. Third. The door tilted inward. Jack caught it, pushed it aside, and smoke billowed out. Move. Everyone out. Now. Mrs. Peterson was already organizing the children, but the hallway was a wall of black smoke. "We can't see anything," she shouted. Jack remembered his training in zero-visibility environments. He pulled off his work shirt, revealing the undershirt beneath. "Kids, grab my shirt, grab each other. I'm going to get you out of here." He formed them into a human chain. Mrs. Peterson at the rear, Jack at the front. 18 second graders between them. The smoke was so thick Jack couldn't see his own hands. He navigated by touch, by memory, by the mental map he'd built over 8 years of maintenance work. Left at the water fountain. Straight for 30 feet. Right at the main stairwell. Behind them, something exploded. The gasoline had found an ignition source. Jack felt the heat on his back, heard the roar of flames consuming the hallway they'd just escaped. Down the stairs, one child at a time. Some were crying. Some were silent. All were trusting the janitor they'd barely noticed to save their lives. They made it to the first floor as the fire department arrived. Jack handed off the human chain to waiting paramedics, then sat down hard on the sidewalk. His knee was done. His lungs burned from smoke. Mrs. Peterson knelt beside him, tears streaming. "Jack, how did you know exactly where to go?" Jack coughed, tasted ash and smoke. "Same way I know where every pipe runs in this building. You learn the layout when people's lives depend on it." The investigation began within hours. Detective Maria Santos had seen arson before, but nothing this calculated. Security cameras showed a figure in maintenance coveralls entering the building at 6 a.m., long before school started. Face obscured, movements deliberate. Whoever did this knew the building layout intimately, Santos told Principal Martinez. They knew which hallway would create a wind tunnel effect, which doors were structural weak points. Jack stood in the charred remains of the second-floor hallway, his trained eye reading the burn patterns like a map. "Started here," he pointed to room 23's doorframe. "Accelerant trail leads back to the stairwell. Classic funnel pattern, designed to trap anyone inside the classroom while blocking the primary escape route." Santos looked at the quiet janitor with new interest. "You seem to know a lot about fire patterns. In Iraq, insurgents used accelerants in IEDs. Creates more psychological impact than just explosives. Makes people panic." Jack's voice was matter-of-fact, professional. This wasn't random. Someone specifically targeted Mrs. Peterson's class. The detective's blood chilled. Why those kids? Jack had been wondering the same thing. Mrs. Peterson taught the special needs inclusion class. 18 children with varying learning disabilities, mobility issues, processing delays. Kids who might struggle to evacuate quickly, who might not understand complex emergency instructions. They picked the most vulnerable children in the school, Jack said quietly. Knew these kids would have trouble getting out fast. Later, investigators found evidence of arson. Accelerant poured in strategic locations. Doors deliberately jammed. Someone had wanted to trap those children. They never found who did it. But they found Jack saw marks on that door, his footprints in the ash, the path he'd cut through smoke to safety. The district offered him a promotion. Security chief. Better pay. Recognition. Jack turned it down. "I'm a janitor," he told them. "I fix things that are broken." Today, what was broken was a door. But something had changed. The kids who'd walked that human chain out of the smoke started paying attention to Mr. Jack. They'd learned that the quietest person in the building might be the bravest. The children began seeking Jack out in ways they never had before. Maria, one of the kids from room 23, started bringing him drawings of firefighters and heroes. Tommy, who had autism and rarely spoke to adults, began following Jack on his rounds, fascinated by his tool belt and methodical approach to repairs. "Mr. Jack," Maria asked one day as he fixed a broken water fountain, "were you scared in the fire?" Jack considered the question seriously. In EOD work, fear wasn't something you eliminated. It was something you managed. "Yeah, sweetheart. I was scared. But being scared doesn't mean you can't help people. It just means you care about what happens to them." Mrs. Peterson noticed the change too. Her students, who'd been having nightmares and anxiety attacks since the fire, seemed calmer when Jack was around. His quiet presence, his careful attention to their building safety, gave them a sense of security that counselors and therapy sessions couldn't match. And Jack, well, he kept mopping floors and fixing leaky sinks. But now he carried a different tool in his maintenance kit. A rescue saw, just in case the building tried to trap his kids again. Because Staff Sergeant Jack Morrison, EOD, had learned that bombs weren't the only things that could explode in schools. Sometimes danger came disguised as safety. Sometimes the exit became the trap. And sometimes the person with the keys to every room was exactly the person you needed when all the doors slammed shut. 6 months later, a little girl named Sophia was having an asthma attack in the nurse's office when the automated system malfunctioned, locking her inside. By the time teachers realized what happened, Jack was already cutting through the electronic lock with tools that seemed too advanced for a janitor. The electronic lock malfunction wasn't random either. Jack discovered it during his evening maintenance check. Someone had tampered with the nurse's office security system, creating a delayed failure designed to trigger during school hours. "It's the same person," Jack told Detective Santos over the phone. "They're still here, still targeting the kids." "How can you be sure?" Jack examined the electronic components with the same methodical approach he'd used on bomb circuits in Fallujah. The sabotage is too sophisticated for random vandalism, but too crude for a professional. Someone with basic electrical knowledge, but no formal training. They're learning as they go. "How did you know the system failed?" the nurse asked. Jack helped Sophia with her inhaler, his hands gentle but sure. When you've spent years around things designed to kill people, you notice when safety systems become dangerous. The children at Roosevelt Elementary learned to see their school differently. They noticed how Mr. Jack always knew where they were, how he appeared whenever something went wrong, how he moved through the building like he was protecting something precious. Because he was. Every day, he walked these halls guarding 400 futures, carrying the knowledge that heroism doesn't announce itself with sirens and badges. Sometimes it just carries a mop and keeps the lights on. 6 months after the fire, Detective Santos called with news. They'd caught the arsonist, a former district employee who'd been fired for inappropriate contact with students. Unable to access children directly, he'd decided to hurt them indirectly. The psychological profile matched Jack's assessment exactly: escalating attacks, targeting vulnerable populations, learning from each attempt. Your military training probably saved more than just those 18 kids, Santos told Jack. Without your intervention, his next attempt might have been catastrophic. But Jack found no satisfaction in being right. He increased his security patrols, added new locks to critical areas, installed motion sensors in maintenance areas where someone might try to sabotage systems. Roosevelt Elementary became as secure as any forward operating base he'd ever worked on. The children grew older, moved on to middle school, high school, college. But they stayed in touch with Mr. Jack. Maria became a firefighter. Tommy found his voice and became a public speaker about autism awareness. Several others chose careers in public safety, education, social work, all of them shaped by the day their janitor became their protector. And in Phoenix, Arizona, kids still tell the story of the day their janitor became their guardian angel. The day they learned that the person who cleans up after you might be the same person who'd die to save you. So tell us in the comments, who are the invisible heroes in your life? The maintenance workers, the lunch staff, the crossing guards who keep our children safe? At Unseen Heroes, we know that courage doesn't need a uniform. Sometimes it just needs keys to all the doors. Until next time, pay attention to the quiet ones. They might be watching over you.